To understand how two men who should have been brothers became lifelong enemies, you have to go back to 1967, when their relationship was the exact opposite of hatred. Muhammad Ali had just been stripped of his heavyweight championship for refusing to go to Vietnam. Every state athletic commission in America had revoked his boxing license. He couldn't fight anywhere, and more importantly, he had no money. The man who'd been guaranteed millions in future fights was suddenly broke, facing a 5-year prison sentence and banned from the only profession he'd ever known. Joe Frazier was a rising contender, working his way up the heavyweight rankings. He was everything Ali wasn't at that moment. He had a license to fight, he had money coming in, and he had the boxing world's respect. And Frazier did something remarkable. He gave Ali $1,000 from his own pocket to help him survive. In 1967, that was real money, enough to pay rent and buy groceries for months. Frazier didn't have to do it. Ali wasn't asking for charity, but Frazier saw a fellow fighter in trouble, and he helped. More than that, Frazier publicly supported Ali's right to refuse the draft. If Cassius says he's not going to fight in Vietnam, that's his business, Frazier told reporters. I respect that. At a time when most of America was calling Ali a traitor and a coward, Joe Frazier stood up for him. They weren't enemies, they were brothers. Two black men from the South who'd fought their way out of poverty with their fists. They helped each other. But then Ali came back to boxing, and everything changed. By 1970, public opinion about the Vietnam War had shifted. Ali's conviction was under appeal, and slowly, state by state, boxing commissions started giving him licenses again. In March 1971, Ali got his shot at reclaiming the heavyweight title. The problem was, the man who held that title now was Joe Frazier. Frazier had earned his championship the hard way. While Ali was banned, Frazier had fought and beaten every contender. He'd defeated Jimmy Ellis, Buster Mathis, and Bob Foster. He was the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, and he'd earned it in the ring, not through controversy or politics. But Ali never saw it that way. To Ali, Frazier was just keeping his title warm. The championship belonged to Ali. It had been taken from him unfairly, and now he wanted it back. Ali didn't just want to fight Frazier, he wanted to diminish him, to make people believe that Frazier wasn't a real champion. So Ali started the insults. He called Frazier the white man's champion. He said Frazier was too dumb and ugly to be a real champion. He said Frazier was just a tool of the white establishment. And worst of all, he started calling Frazier an Uncle Tom, suggesting that Frazier was betraying black people by being acceptable to white America. For Joe Frazier, this was devastating. He'd grown up picking cotton in South Carolina. He knew racism. He knew poverty. He'd fought his way out of nothing, just like Ali had. And now Ali, the man he'd helped, the man he'd given money to, the man he'd defended, was calling him a traitor to his race. That hurt more than any punch he ever landed, Frazier would say years later. He tried to make me the enemy of black folks, and I'm blacker than he is. But Ali kept going because he knew something. If he could make Frazier into a villain, if he could turn the fight into a battle between good and evil, between the people's champion and the establishment's puppet, he could make more money. And it worked. On March 8, 1971, Ali and Frazier met at Madison Square Garden in New York City for what was billed as the fight of the century. It was the first time two undefeated heavyweight champions had ever fought each other. The entire world stopped to watch. Frank Sinatra was at ringside taking photographs for Life magazine. Every seat in Madison Square Garden was filled with celebrities, politicians, and fight fans who'd paid record prices for tickets.
The fight itself was brutal. For 15 rounds, Ali and Frazier beat each other with a ferocity that went beyond normal boxing competition. This was personal. Ali was trying to prove he was still the greatest. Frazier was trying to prove he belonged in the conversation. In the 15th round, Frazier landed one of the most famous punches in boxing history, a devastating left hook that knocked Ali down. Ali caught up, but the damage was done. When the judges' scorecards were read, Joe Frazier had won by unanimous decision. Frazier had done what no one else had ever done. He'd beaten Muhammad Ali. But instead of earning Ali's respect, the victory seemed to make Ali even more determined to destroy Frazier's reputation. Over the next few years, as they both continued fighting other opponents, Ali kept up the insults. He kept calling Frazier dumb, ugly, and a white man's champion. In January 1974, they fought again. This time, Ali won a 12-round unanimous decision. The rubber match was inevitable. On October 1, 1975, Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier met for the third time in Manila, Philippines, in a fight that would be called the Thrilla in Manila. It would turn out to be the most brutal fight either man ever experienced. But before the fight, Ali ramped up the insults to a new level. He started calling Frazier a gorilla. He brought a toy gorilla to press conferences and pretended it was Frazier. He'd beat the toy gorilla and throw it on the ground. He'd make monkey sounds, and he'd recite his poem, "It will be a killer and a thriller and a chiller when I get the gorilla in Manila." For a black man in 1975, being called a gorilla by another black man wasn't just an insult. It was the same dehumanizing language that white racists had used against black people for centuries. It was the language of slavery, of Jim Crow, of lynching, and Ali knew exactly what he was doing. Frazier's children saw the press conferences on television. They heard Ali call their father a gorilla, and they went to school the next day where other kids repeated it. "Your daddy's a gorilla," the kids would say. Frazier's children came home crying. "That's when I knew I'd never forgive him," Frazier said later. "You can say what you want about me, but you hurt my kids? That's unforgivable." The fight in Manila was hell. For 14 rounds, Ali and Frazier tried to kill each other. It wasn't boxing anymore, it was war. Ali employed his rope-a-dope strategy, leaning against the ropes and letting Frazier pound his body, trying to exhaust him. Frazier kept coming forward, throwing devastating hooks to Ali's body and head. By the middle rounds, both men were in terrible shape. Ali's face was swollen. Frazier's eyes were nearly shut from the swelling. They were both fighting on pure will and hatred. After the 14th round, Eddie Futch looked at his fighter and made a decision. Frazier's eyes were swollen completely shut. He could barely see. Blood poured from cuts on his face. "Sit down, son. It's over," Futch said. "No," Frazier protested. "Don't stop it, Eddie. I want him." "No, Joe," Futch said firmly. "It's over. No one will ever forget what you did here today." Futch waved to the referee. The fight was over. Ali had won by technical knockout. In Ali's corner, Ali collapsed on his stool. "That was the closest thing to death I've ever experienced," Ali would later say. His trainer, Angelo Dundee, admitted years later that if Futch hadn't stopped the fight, Ali's corner was about to throw in the towel. Both men were finished. You'd think that after going through something like that together, after nearly killing each other in the ring, two warriors would have mutual respect, that the rivalry would be over, settled once and for all. But it wasn't, because the damage Ali had done to Frazier wasn't in the ring. It was outside of it, and those wounds never healed. In the years after Manila, Ali tried to reconcile with Frazier. As Parkinson's progressed and his speech diminished, he seemed to realize what he'd done. He'd say Frazier was a great fighter, that he respected him, that the insults were just promotion. But Frazier didn't want to hear it. In interview after interview, Frazier made his feelings clear. He hated Ali. "He called me a gorilla," Frazier would say. "He stole part of my life, part of my legacy. He made me out to be the bad guy when I was the one who helped him when he had nothing. I don't forgive him. I don't like him, and that's not going to change." In 2001, 30 years after their first fight, Ali and Frazier appeared together at an event. Ali, his speech slurred by Parkinson's, tried to put his arm around Frazier in a gesture of reconciliation. Frazier pushed him away. "Get off me," Frazier said. The crowd gasped. But Frazier didn't care. He wasn't going to pretend for the cameras. In interviews, when Frazier was asked about Ali's condition, about the Parkinson's that had ravaged Ali's body, Frazier's response shocked people. "Look at him now," Frazier said. "He can barely talk. He's damaged goods. I'm glad. He got what was coming to him." People were horrified. How could Frazier be so cold? But Frazier didn't care what people thought. The pain Ali had caused him, calling him an Uncle Tom, calling him a gorilla, humiliating him in front of his children, that pain was real, and it didn't go away just because Ali got sick. "I forgave him for beating me," Frazier explained. "I didn't forgive him for taking away my dignity." On November 7, 2011, Joe Frazier died of liver cancer at the age of 67. His funeral was held at the Anon Tabernacle Baptist Church in Philadelphia, the city where he'd lived and trained for most of his life. Over 4,000 people attended. Former champions, fighters he'd trained, politicians, and fans who'd loved Smokin' Joe. The eulogies were beautiful. People talked about Frazier's courage, his work ethic, his generosity. They talked about what a great fighter he'd been and what a good man he'd been to the people in his community. And then Reverend Jesse Jackson stood at the podium. He talked about Frazier's legacy, about his dignity, about his impact on boxing and on Black America. And then Jackson said something that made everyone in that church hold their breath. "For Joe Frazier," Jackson said, his voice rising, "I need you all to stand up one last time. Bring your hands together. Let's hear it for Smokin' Joe." The crowd rose to their feet. They clapped and cheered. But in the third row, something remarkable was happening. Muhammad Ali, age 69, ravaged by Parkinson's disease, was struggling to his feet. His wife, Lonnie, helped him stand. His body trembled, his hands shook violently, but he was clapping, not politely, not quietly, as loud as his trembling hands would allow. Tears streamed down Ali's face. His mouth was moving, but no words came out. Parkinson's had taken his ability to speak clearly years earlier. But everyone in that church could see what he was trying to say. Everyone could see the regret, the sorrow, the apology that came 40 years too late.
People around Ali started to cry. They weren't crying just for Joe Frazier. They were crying for Ali, too. For the man who'd realized his mistake but couldn't fix it. For the apology that would never be heard. For the friendship that had been destroyed and could never be rebuilt. After the funeral, one of Frazier's sons was asked about seeing Ali there. "It meant something that he came," the son said, "but it doesn't change what happened. My father died without forgiving him. That's just the reality." The tragedy of Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier isn't that they fought each other. It's not even that Ali called Frazier a gorilla. The tragedy is that none of it had to happen. They weren't enemies. They should have been allies. Two black men who'd overcome incredible odds to become champions. But Ali made a calculation. He decided that if he turned Frazier into a villain, he could make more money. And it worked. The fights made them both wealthy. But the cost was a friendship that could never be repaired. The cost was Frazier's children crying. The cost was Frazier carrying hatred for 40 years. The cost was Ali never being able to make it right. In the end, they both lost. Ali won 2 of the 3 fights, but he lost Joe Frazier's forgiveness.
Frazier won the respect he'd fought so hard for, but he lost the peace that comes with letting go of anger. There's a lesson in their story, and it's not about boxing. It's about the words we use and the wounds they create. It's about how easy it is to hurt someone for temporary gain and how hard it is to heal that hurt later. It's about the difference between beating someone in a ring and destroying them outside of it. Muhammad Ali was many things: the greatest boxer of all time, a civil rights icon, a man of courage and conviction. But he was also human, and humans make mistakes. The gorilla insults were Ali's biggest mistake, not because they cost him fights, he won in Manila, but because they cost him something more valuable, the respect and friendship of a man who'd once helped him when he had nothing. At Joe Frazier's funeral, when Ali stood and clapped with his trembling, Parkinson's-ravaged hands, he was doing the only thing he could do. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was all he had left. If this story about the cost of words and the tragedy of unforgivable wounds moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear about the importance of treating people with dignity, because you never know when it might be too late to apologize. Have you ever said something you couldn't take back? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to ring that notification bell for more true stories about the human cost behind sports' greatest rivalries.